It wasn't a strategic move. I always planned on going to law school. I didn't really know what I wanted to do, so I was accepted, moved to Austin, and started having fun. I got into real estate, found success with performance marketing and SEO kind of early on. I always joke that I got into real estate in '03 and then got serious about it in like 2010, 2011. Founded the firm in 2012, only wanted to focus on my own production. We had one other agent at the time. We hired our second agent about 2 years later, and I think we hired our third like a year later. So we grew super slowly for a long time. But yeah, we caught traction, I would say 2022, 2023. And we're sort of at a point now where in Central Texas at least, we're kind of gaining, mass adoption.
Want to attract and convert more leads? Want to learn how digital PR, branding, and SEO can establish and build your brand identity? Welcome to the Market Movers Building Brands and Links with Linkify podcast. We answer these questions and help you ramp up your brand visibility and credibility. Let's cut through the noise and make your business the talk of the town. We're your hosts, Nick and Chris. Let's get this show on the road.
Welcome to the Market Movers podcast. Today, I am really excited to be joined by Eric Bramlett, broker and owner of Bramlett Partners, one of the most successful real estate firms in Austin. Welcome to the show, Eric.
Thank you, Chris. I'm super excited to be here, and it's great to finally meet you, I guess, in person here.
Eric, it's great to have you on. To start, let's just talk about how you built up Bramlett Partners. I know you went to Oklahoma University and you moved down to Austin, which is maybe a difficult move, and then built a very successful brokerage. So can you walk us through that journey?
Yeah, absolutely. It wasn't a strategic move. I always planned on going to law school. I actually got waitlisted at UT because I was coming in from out of state. I didn't really know what I wanted to do, said I don't want to go to these other schools. I was accepted, moved to Austin, and started having fun. Like, Austin is one of the best places in your 20s that you can possibly be. During that time, punted on law school, then got sick of bartending and said, well, what should I do? I got into real estate, found success with performance marketing and SEO kind of early on. Actually, before SEO, I was turned on to Craigslist before like anybody in town had it. And so I could just post these ads on Craigslist and like leads would come in. And I said, oh, there's something to this. Didn't really take it super seriously for a while. I always joke that I got into real estate in '03 and then got serious about it in like 2010, 2011. Founded the firm in 2012, only wanted to focus on my own production. We had one other agent at the time, Will, who's still with us, great guy. He was there sort of like when we had a lot of overflow leads, like, hey, Will, like, let's work these. We hired our second agent, Tara McGuire, who's also still with us about 2 years later. And I think we hired our third like a year later. So we grew super slowly for a long time. Again, I'm a big kind of fan of focus, and the focus at first was always like my own personal production. And if we had other production outside of it, then great. Then it shifted towards, at the time, what was a small team and then a mid-sized team production. But it was still, my production was a big component of that. And then in 2020, we kind of looked at the systems we'd built. We had a pretty big leads program. And we said, hey, we think we might be able to scale this. And it's one of those deals that you look at in hindsight, you're like, man, I really underestimated how much work this is going to be. But yeah, we caught traction, I would say 2022, 2023. And we're sort of at a point now where, in Central Texas, at least, we're kind of gaining, mass adoption. Like, the word is out, like, hey, this is a great place to be. So it's really exciting right now. A whole slew of challenges that I never expected. And so it's fun, man. Like, problem solving is what I love doing. And that's kind of where we are with it.
So you went 2020 to just you and another broker to 2025 now being...
Well, not quite. I mean, from 2012 to 2020, I think we grew. Like, we have a spreadsheet. Say we went from like 2 to 20 agents in that period of time. And then from 2020 to present, we're now 113 agents. And,
wow.
And most of that growth has actually been in the past 2 years. We're very deliberate because, growing pains is a word for a reason, right? So we try to avoid as many growing pains as we possibly can. And the easiest way to do that is just be very deliberate. Like, you don't go all in on anything until you know, hey, this process really works. And so we feel like we're really good at hiring agents now. So we're not scared of growing agent count anymore like we used to be. But now it's like the back end processes and support and whatnot that we're making sure we're getting right as we go.
So you had more like slower growth, you're growing, and then all of a sudden it just takes off. What led to that period of just hyper growth?
Yeah, so a lot of things sort of coalesced, right? The market in Austin is doing really poorly, and I don't say that, with any sort of despair. It's really like markets go up and down, and we're in a sort of a prolonged downturn right now. So when one of the silver linings to downturns is that great agents will actually like look around. And when agents are super busy, like really good agents, if they're in an okay spot, they just don't look around. So that happened. So there was timing. I also sort of accidentally started really leaning into authority building, and then I was turned on. A good friend of mine gave me a book a couple years ago called The Authority Advantage. And he said, "Hey man, you're doing a lot of this already, but I think you might have some takeaways." And so I read it and I was like, man, this is a blueprint, right? That's why we're here. It's podcasts, it's writing more newsletters. Like when I collaborate with you guys and you guys are doing outreach for PR, and I say, hey, here's some stuff that we could maybe use with that. So it all kind of came together. I mean, I cringe when I say this, but like allowing myself to sort of step into kind of a thought leadership position. That's, I would say if there's one thing that really sort of like did it, that would be it.
That's so cool. So yeah, I mean, it's obviously a hugely important part of SEO, especially is the way it's going, building authority and having that demonstrable like authoritativeness to your brand and yourself personally. So I'm intrigued, like, was there no one else doing this in the real estate industry in your area, or were you like the first one to make waves with it?
There's a lot of people that do it, and I don't want to bash anybody, but like they go after it in sort of like an influencer style, which that's sort of why it always repelled me. I was like, man, I don't want to follow this blueprint. Like it seems kind of self-centered. It seems a bit braggadocious. And so what we did was we started putting out just like statistical pieces. I'm a very numbers guy, right? And so like, well, share these numbers, at least focuses on numbers, not on me. And that's kind of what gave us the sort of foothold. And then what the Authority Advantage talks about is that you have to have a strong component of humility whenever you are, putting forth these thought leadership pieces. And that's important because you're not going to get it right all the time, and you need to be aware of that. And there's going to be other ideas that you're challenged by that maybe you don't like necessarily respect a whole lot, but you have to be open to those. So you include that component of humility, and it really just works, right? And the answer, Chris, to your question is like locally, Central Texas and probably Texas wide. No, nobody else was doing it. So it was lucky, right?
Yeah.
I think about real estate influencers. I kind of think about like the stand in front of a Lamborghini model. Like, is that what you're talking about? Where you see people like just being way too braggy? And
I mean, it's not as bad as like the affiliate marketing space or like the crypto space or anything, but it's on its way, right? I mean, it's they sort of borrow from that. Do you guys watch South Park at all?
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you see the Realtor episode on South Park?
No.
All right, go watch it.
I will after.
No, they nailed it. I mean, they absolutely nailed it. It's just like, it's people like, showcasing houses, but it's all about them, right? Who cares? I mean, come on, show me the house. So it's really more of, I mean, it's what you said. It's all about them. It's not necessarily a Ferrari, but it's like, these sort of like implied brags, right? These humble brags, like, oh, I'm so blessed. And it's like, whatever, like, no, tell me about the market. It's always about your audience, which you guys know super well in the PR space, right? Like, what if you went and pitched and said, hey, we've got this agent in Austin and he's awesome. And that was like the entire pitch. You're like, shut up. Who cares?
Yeah.
It's the worst. Like, nobody wants to hear that.
Before we dive into like strategy on how to build authority, what's the sort of real time feedback that you get from clients that have been influenced by that authority? Like, how are you seeing that that influence your interaction with clients?
Yeah, I mean, it's not, I mean, like real time is tough because you put it out there and then you might not hear from somebody for 6, 12, 18 months, right? But generally it's like gratitude. It's like, hey, right, like I said, Austin, the market's not doing awesome. You know what I mean? Like, not a political statement. The economy is not like super stable right now in the US. And so it's scary for a lot of people. There's a lot of uncertainty and fear out there. And so whenever you put out, thought leadership pieces that don't sugarcoat anything, but also don't say the sky is falling, you're not like seeking attention. And people like that. They want to hear a voice of reason. And so, anytime we send a newsletter, I mean, I'll get at least a half a dozen responses, just like, thank you. Like, thanks for this information, So it's great. It's very fulfilling.
So has the strategy been more like building authority to like with the local community or with the real estate space? Because you mentioned like that was a big part of your growth was you built authority and then you've grown, you mentioned the agent count. So is your content, is it targeting more like the real estate industry, or are you targeting more people who are looking for homes? What's the strategy behind that?
Yeah, actually, I have two. So there's two audiences, and you have consumers, and that also there's a big crossover into agents because all agents want to know like how do I advise consumers. And then we also do have a specific. I mean, I have a tag in the CRMs industry newsletter, and that's where we have a separate newsletter we'll send out that's specifically just like industry topics. Like there's always some topic of the day that everybody is buzzing about, and normally the sort of narrative is really extreme, and it's like maybe not the most logical narrative. So what I always try to do is come from, it's funny that it has to be a contrarian position, but it's like I try to find like a more balanced, view of it, a more sort of like reasonable approach. Right now, these two big firms in the United States, you have Compass, it's like the biggest real estate brokerage in the United States. Then you have Zillow, which is Zillow, and they're like duking it out, and they're both claiming that they're pro-consumer. And I'm like, neither one of you guys are. Like you're both like so self-interested with your positions. But you take that perspective and maybe do it and add a dose of humility to that, where you're not like bashing them. And it's just like, hey guys, can we step back for a second and like, Zillow, wants all these listings on their website because they want to sell more leads, and Compass wants this exclusive inventory because like they can get more clients and recruit more agents. So can we all at least acknowledge that they're coming from a place of self-interest, and then we can talk about the sub, so stuff like that is really kind of what we do. But I will tell you that the consumer facing stuff is what just knocks it out of the park. Like, consumers really want to hear what's really going on with the market. They really want to hear somebody say like, hey, we don't necessarily know what's going to happen in the future, but here are the scenarios that could play out, stuff like that.
Nice. Okay, so you mentioned that the newsletter does well. I know you've also got the YouTube channel. How are you growing that consumer facing audience? How are you getting people onto the email list, and what's working best? I assume it's the newsletter, but how is that?
I mean, we have a decent amount of traffic to the website. Thank you guys. And so you capture them when they come, and then we just like they opt in, and we don't do like. I mean, nuts and bolts stuff, like we're not big believers in double opt-in. The newsletter's pretty well received. It's not super commercial. So we like let them opt out if they don't want to be in, a whole other like maybe technical episode over like, how do you convert more people to come to the website? Google One Tap. If anybody's not using that, like use it. It's like one of the best conversion tools you can have. But yeah, that's how we get them. And then, we have like, I think, around 300,000 people on it right now, but that didn't happen overnight.
Wow.
It started with like probably 100 back, 13 years ago. So,
yeah.
So is this a newsletter that everyone on the list gets? Or are you sending out like, homes that they might like based on what they viewed? What do you send out exactly?
Yeah. I mean, you have to segment, right? I mean, like everybody, like it's interesting whenever I meet people that are, they got these big spam problems. Like I keep getting thrown in spam. It's like, well, what are you sending first? Let's not look at like any technical, like why even look at DMARC before? Well, I guess DMARC's pretty easy, but why even look at this stuff until like you look at your content first? So, I mean, Chris, like if I sent you a newsletter that was hyper local to some neighborhood in Austin, you'd be like, what is this? And that would be a bad email. So yeah, I mean, we send most people the high level Austin newsletter, even people that don't live in Austin. It's a quick read. It's only once a month, and they generally like it. So we have a pretty strong open rate. The open rate's like around 50%. And then, the industry newsletter, that's obviously to a different segment. We don't want to send Austin newsletter to a lot of people who live in New York City or anything like that. Well, not to get in the weeds, but sometimes. And then what we really like to do, and this is the agent strategy, is you want to get as hyper local as you can. So we have another tool that will send sold listings and statistics for different neighborhoods around town. So if I live in Northwest Hills, then I would love to get sold listings and neighborhood statistics for Northwest Hills. I'm not going to, I don't want like East Austin stats or something like that if I don't live over there. So the more hyper local and the more niche you can design your newsletters in real estate, the better you're going to do. For the same reason that there's like dozens of reality shows over, house shopping and flipping houses and all that, most people are interested in what's going on in the market. And so if you just like tap into that, you will find a pretty receptive audience.
Is that something you're able to automate, the sending out specific neighborhood stuff?
Yeah, we always try to automate as much as we possibly can. Right now, there's a human element to it. So they come in, they opt in, and then we kind of see what they view, and we can assume based on what they view, like we can start sending them, market updates for that area or listings for that area. It is something that we did used to have an automated tool that did it, worked pretty well. We will probably revisit like complete automation at some point, but agents, it's a really high ticket service. So, you're talking about like, if you're doing really well, like maybe hundreds of qualified leads a year, maybe, that's like one a day. Like you can totally handle that manually if you're an agent.
And are you purging Are you?
Oh, for sure, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, like, yeah. So we're constantly looking at, bounced emails. Like, you got to get those out of there. One of the filters I'll run is like, last email open. If somebody hasn't opened an email in 6 months, we don't want to send it to them. So yeah, I mean, what you're getting at is like, email hygiene is super important. I would say it's like not quite as technical as SEO, but it's very similar to SEO in terms of like understanding the algorithm. And it's something that you can figure out on your own. I mean, with AI today, like you could certainly just go to Grok or GPT and ask the questions. But yeah, if you're like a new business owner out there and you're conceptualizing your newsletter, the first thing you want to think of is like, what can I send to people that will actually be well received? That's actually going to be interesting. And then part two, after you start building the list, is like really like what's good email hygiene. Like you've done all the basics like DMARC, DKIM, SPF. You're making sure you're getting into the inbox. And then as you start building this list, yes, email hygiene is critical, and hire somebody if you're not sure how to do it.
Yeah, 100%. Especially with us in digital PR outreach as well. The rules and the games and the everything is changing so quickly. And I have a heart attack probably once a month because I don't understand this stuff at all. But really quick piece of advice for anyone listening is if you don't understand it and you're on good hosting, like email the hosting and they'll often just help you, especially with like the DMARC and all of that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting, there's not a lot of industries that are spammier than real estate. I think PR might be one of them.
PR's definitely
At least they're expecting to be spam though. Like journalists know that's what their inboxes are for. Okay, Eric, I just wanted to quickly ask with the consumer part of the list, with the strategy you touched upon then, you want to be sending emails that people want to receive. I'm intrigued. Is it you that's personally crafting those emails? What's the strategy behind that? And is that something you enjoy doing?
Yeah, so I was lucky. Like that was a skill that I learned in college. I have an English degree, writing emphasis. Like I said, I wanted to go to law school. So that's always helped me. Over the past couple of years, I'm, a little embarrassed to say it, but I'm writing less and less because I can just iterate with ChatGPT. So the flow now is kind of, I learned sort of like kicking and screaming that video is very important. And so the flow now is that I will generally do the video first, and then I'll take the transcript and I have a custom GPT tuned pretty well with a lot of my old writing samples, and it will generate a newsletter based on that. You'll find that about 2/3 of your audience prefers video anyways. But video can certainly, even though most people prefer video, like, if you're hesitant to do video, start with copy, right? But my process now, again, is video first, take transcript, craft a newsletter out of the transcript, iterate. AI is very much garbage in, garbage out. So if you don't go back and forth a few times, it's going to be crap. Make sure it looks good, make sure it looks human, and then that's, then you push it out. That's kind of our process now.
It's a great way to work.
Yeah.
So getting people on the list, let's say someone comes to your site, they're looking at homes in a specific neighborhood or something like that. How do you actually get them to get on your newsletter list?
Yeah, I mean,
tempt them with?
If they inquire in any way, so if they make it into the CRM, and there's a lot of different conversion channels, conversion tools that we use to get them.
Nice.
Okay, so you want them to like reach out and ask about a house.
Well, yeah, or just register. If we capture their email in any way, that's what I said. One tap is like your conversion goes through the roof because it's very easy. It's nondescript. People generally just click the button. We've tried other things. There's a lot of these like anonymous anonymous visitor identification tools that are out there. You will certainly, show up. You'll end up on a blacklist if you just take all of that and start sending those emails, because we almost ended up on a blacklist from doing that.
So one of these ones that like tracks the visitors to the site,
like Pearl Divers, the big one everybody knows, stuff like that. I'm still trying to figure out what to do with those because the technology is really cool.
Yeah.
But I do think that you need a second opt-in after that in order to like keep, a good email reputation.
Okay, so the video content, is there a strategy there? Are you just sitting down and talking about what's going on in the market? How do you come up with the video ideas?
Yeah. So, I mean, for our space, again, we're pretty lucky in that most people are interested in what's going on in the real estate market. And that could be local, that could be national. So that's the no-brainer content is like, once a month, what's going on, right? The other content that we do is stuff like this. It's really, doing a lot of podcasts, coming up with topics. For us, like those video topics are generally, I will ask the question, like, is this interesting to other industry professionals? So interesting to other industry professionals is pretty broad. Like if you're a business owner, if you're a realtor, you're a business owner, and business owners are interested in all kinds of things. So that's kind of what we think about. They're in the Authority Advantage, which again, I'm keep plugging this book. They talk about the different categories of topics. And one of them, which you guys are well aware of, is, topical stuff, like time sensitive, like this thing just hit the news. And when some topic hits the news, you've got about 2 days where you can go go pitch, or you can like come up with, your perspective. So it can be dangerous. Like if you come up with a bad perspective that makes people feel bad. So it requires confidence to like wade into that space. But again, I mean, like if any listener today that wants to like, how do I get started? Well, like what's interesting? What are your, who's your audience? That's always the first question, is who's your audience? Piece of advice is like, don't make it overly broad, and don't be afraid to like narrow it down. If I said every piece of content that I have has to be interesting to local consumers, local real estate agents, and the industry as a whole, like I wouldn't have very many topics, and it would probably be pretty boring to everybody. So, I'm trying to think of an example, like who's a great client of yours that you can, like an industry that you can think of?
Dentists, dental clinics, health.
For sure, right? I don't know. Like what's interesting to me for dental care is like, I mean, if there's new technologies or, I mean, that one is a bit tough because like, I don't want to receive like, how do I, good oral hygiene once a month or anything like that.
I don't want to hear about it until my dentist appointment, because he tells me off every 6 months. I get shouted at.
There's a guy. So there's a guy that I follow on X, and I don't spend a lot of time on Twitter X because it's pretty toxic. But there's this kid who's like out of the East Coast who's a power washer. He literally, that's what he does, and he's been tweeting his whole business journey, like what he's doing. It's crazy interesting to me. I'm like, this guy's like 22. He's talking about like how he's marketing for this stuff. So, like business to business stuff is almost always interesting. And you'll find that your existing customers really care about how your business is doing. I mean, whatever you think could be interesting to the consumer. Again, dental's kind of tough, but like new technologies, maybe. I don't know if insurance is pretty freaking boring, but maybe something like that. But then like your personal story. And if you tell your personal story with like transparency, honesty, and humility, you're going to find a pretty big audience most of the time.
Yeah, 100% agree. My question to you then is, there are going to be brokerage owners listening to this that are in let's say the start of their authority building journey. Maybe they started to build a list. Maybe they're emailing the list. Maybe they're on that first step of that path. When you start talking about video and opening up and sharing personal things, that can be a very uncomfortable thing for some people. How do you recommend that they broach that? And obviously the benefits are obvious, but that personal thing that could be holding them back, how do you recommend they approach that?
So first of all, I would say, when people hear personal, and I do see people get it wrong, they like, I've seen people talk about like their divorces and stuff like that. It's like, guys, like, come on, there needs to be some boundaries, right? When you say personal, it's more of like your business journey. Like, what is it that what is it that you care about? Another plug for another book is, it's called Creating Superfans, and it's one of my favorites. And what they say is that like, she has this cool, her name's Brittany Hodak. She's awesome. She has this cool acronym, and it's start with your story, and you is understand your customer. So what I would tell anybody before you even like start a newsletter is maybe read the book if you like reading books, and then start with your story. What do you do? How, like, what makes you unique? I talked with one of our agents yesterday. We were having lunch, and she wants to go into the probate space, like helping people who have inherited a property. They've gone through a tough time, and helping them get that sold. And she said, well, my dad passed away when I was 23, and I remember every person's name that helped me with that. And so like Crystal has, multiple customer profiles, but that's one. And I said, that's an amazing story, right? Like tell that story to people, and then understand your customer. So you is understand your customer, like who is it that you serve? By definition, like who do you not serve? So we coach our agents all the time. We say, look, like me personally, I want to serve people in town that want to have a great experience and want to get the best service they possibly can, and that want to pay a fair price for it. And what you'll see all the time are agents like try to compete with like discount brokers, and they'll say, well, this guy's going to do it for less. And it's like, well, look, if your customer wants that, if that person wants that, that's probably not your customer. That person is price sensitive. They want the cheapest, let them go. And so you have to understand who it is you're serving. So now you have your audience, now you have your story that you're going to tell, and just don't be afraid to tell it and figure out what's interesting to your audience. I mean, a total hack for real estate is like your audience, no matter who they are, as long as it is you're in the business of selling real estate, like they care about statistics. I can guarantee you that. They care about market conditions. So, tell that story if you can't think of anything else.
And there's always a lot going on with that. Like the market has changed a lot since COVID, I think. So
I'm ready for that to stop, but yes, I agree.
Yeah, you're ready for the updates to be.
It was up, it's down. It's like, guys, like, can we just have like a minimal friction for 1 year? Like, come on. It hasn't been since 2019.
We bought our house in Denver, October of COVID year. What was that?
2020, yeah.
And that was like, we weren't really sure what was going to happen. No one was really sure. And that was the perfect time to buy. Rates were historically low. And then Denver went nuts after that. So we're
Of
super glad
course.
about
Yeah,
that.
you look like an investment genius, right? I remember thinking, I was like, I remember in
what I tell
2020, I was like, this business stuff is easy.
Yeah.
It's the craziest market ever. That's what's going on.
All right.
Okay,
so
Eric, go on. Let's break down let's get into SEO because
Sure.
we've helped you there. You've been a great client of ours for a number of years. Talk to us about what percentage of your sales come from SEO. Why is it an important strategy for you?
Well, I didn't know you were going to ask me that question. I have the numbers. It is a measurable amount. So one of our categories, whenever people in real estate, they have to submit compliance packages in order to get paid, and so we always audit the files. And one of the categories is literally says Google organic. And so yes, it's a category that we pay attention to. It's a category that's meaningful to us. I don't know if I've told you my SEO story, Chris, but back in the old days in like the 2000s, I used to like speak at SEO conferences.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, I was super into it. Like it's when I was young and I was doing it all myself. It was back in like the spammy days, man. Like we were spinning articles and just like blasting them all over the internet.
The good old days.
Yeah.
Good old easy. Yeah, just go spam everything and you're going to rank higher. And it worked. And we would do link trades and all this other spammy stuff. And then there used to be, are you guys familiar with Matt Cutts, the old spam team lead? Yeah, he was like the big bad principal. He would come down and just like hammer people with penalties. And he put a light on the real estate industry. I think it was in 2011, 2012. And my site got penalized. And that was like my number one source of business at the time. And I was like, oh my God, what's going to happen? So I had to learn pay-per-click with like AdWords with like super urgency. And I did and was able to like do that. And I hammered that for about a decade and then met you guys because I just couldn't figure out like, what does link build even look like anymore? You knew that they'd done a great job of saying like, they need to be earned links and it's really hard to like get earned links, like I don't have enough time for that. And so whenever we re-engaged, I think you guys were like the third or fourth company that I had gone to. And yeah, I mean, like getting actual authority links, like earning those links that's the name of the game. So if anyone doesn't know a lot about SEO, there's two components to it. There's offsite link building, which is what Linkify does. And then there's the onsite component. And you have like heavy control over onsite. That's where you're making sure your internal linking is great, making sure that your titles are great, all that good stuff. It's pretty like check the box. And then the offsite link building is kind of where the artistry comes in. And I'm very grateful to you guys because you're like at least 90% of our link building component. So
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the on-site part real quick. I know a lot of realtors use like templates. So we had Ryan Fitzgerald on the podcast the other day, who I think you're a good friend with. He said this was a big problem, that a lot of agents, they'll use these pre-built templates. They're really limited on the on-site SEO. So what do you guys do there? Is it a custom build, or how do you approach that of getting the on-site part right?
What Ryan was probably touching on was WordPress, and Ryan has like a visceral reaction whenever he sees WordPress, right? For good reason. Like, are you guys running WordPress on your own side, or what are you guys running for CMAs? Webflow, yeah, that's a great decision. WordPress, I'm not saying that it can't be done, but man, you've got a hand and a leg tied behind your back if you're running a WordPress site. It was a wonderful CMS years ago. It was like one of the first really push that category forward. We're running Statamic. We looked at Webflow. We have a pretty big dev team and they wanted more control. They wanted to build. So Ryan has a completely custom site, which that's like the gold standard. He's got like a headless like Laravel instance, I think. And that's phenomenal. But Ryan's like very technical and he's got a big budget and that works for him. If you're in real estate, there are some off the shelf solutions and I really don't love any of them. Probably the best is like Sierra, I would think, off the shelf, but it doesn't look great and their customer support really sucks. And, but it's kind of like the best of the bad, I guess I would say. If you launch that, then your site will be SEO friendly. We were super excited to find Statamic because it was kind of a middle ground between going full custom and, pushing something out a little bit more quickly. Statamic is super fast. It's flat. Like we're running like a 99%. Page speed score on it, I think. And it allows our developers to get in there and tune it when they need to.
Okay. Ryan just launched his own solution, Agent Loft, which I think addressed all those issues. Yeah.
Yeah. So we share developers. Like his dev team is about as good as it gets. And he and I are good friends. He has not pitched Agent Loft to me yet. I knew he was planning on that. No. I mean, pitch in a good way. Like,
yeah.
So if Ryan's pushing that out, like, yeah, I mean, like I think I just gave Sierra like the shittiest endorsement ever. So, Ryan's Agent Loft will be probably much better. So,
Yeah.
but I need to hit Ryan up about Agent Loft. I mean, we have our agents that ask about stuff all the time. And yeah, I mean, I've been like passively watching that journey as he's built that out. And Ryan knows SEO. Like he and I connected because we could help each other a lot. And when I like re-entered my SEO journey, he was there to help me a bunch with it. And then, his brokerage is growing really well. And he has questions for me about that because we're just a little bit ahead of him on that. And then I learn a lot from him about, what he's doing in Raleigh. So yeah, Agent Loft is definitely worth looking at.
I'm intrigued to know why it seems to be such a small part. Like you, Ryan, a few real estate agents that we work with, this independently owned brokerage just seems to be like a pay for leads model, and very few people are like branching out into the benefits of SEO. Why do you think that is?
It's because it's really hard. I mean, real estate agents in general, like they're the ultimate small business. So you have like 50 million things to do, and SEO is a pretty complicated subject. I mean, performance marketing in general is a very complicated subject. I was not very good at sales naturally. Like I learned how to sell as I went. My brain immediately goes towards like performance marketing type stuff. There's an alternative universe somewhere where I'm probably an engineer, and most people are the other way. Most agents, they're very naturally good at sales. People really like them. They're great at like massaging things to closing, providing great service, and the technical side doesn't come naturally. So they're looking for like an out of the box solution. And unfortunately, I mean, you know how it is, like in any sort of industry, and especially in the tech industry, there's a lot of snake oil out there. So if you go out there and put a flag out, think about this. Like if I went on Facebook and said, I need a link builder, like, what do you think I'm going to get? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What is the line, you guys? And it's pretty low. And what's the likelihood that I get some kid who's working out of his basement who's just like taking PayPal receipts? You know what I mean? Like doing nothing. Yeah. So that's the other reason why.
I think a big part of it too is that like, if you look in your market and you put like homes in Austin, like it's dominated by Zillow, Redfin, Trulia, all the big players. And I think that discourages a lot of realtors. And I think what they have to do is look at the terms that they can actually rank for. And it requires quite a bit of research. But if you go like really granular, if you start to look at, so things like homes with an ADU or like homes that allow horses or whatever, you get really small, go to the neighborhoods. That's when I actually found, Chris, the homes with horses.
I just had pictured a horse in a house for some reason.
No, like horse properties, basically.
Right, yeah.
So if you find all these smaller things, people actually search for them. The search volume is low, but they're wide open. And I think it's a really missed opportunity for brokerage firms to build these landing pages and actually get people who are looking for something very specific.
Yeah, there is. And it just takes time, right? That's the other piece is that, if somebody comes to you and says like, hey, I'm starting from zero and I'd like to, start building authority to the site. Like what's the time? What do you tell them in terms of time expectations?
We don't have anyone come to us at that stage because it's
okay. Well, if you were to, right, you
tell them at least a year, I think.
At least a year, probably 24 months. And so that's a pretty big delayed gratification. And so a lot of people are going like, no, man, like I need impact in my business like next month. And so, if you want that, you have to go to a lead seller. Like you don't really even have time to learn AdWords because AdWords, to get our AdWords campaign optimized to the point that it is now, I mean, it took us years and we're still constantly reacting to like changes. And so, yeah, I totally get it. You got a small business, like you want to see impact tomorrow. You don't want to see it 12 months from now. So I think that's another reason why. And you're right. It's intimidating. How am I going to go up against Zillow? Well, you can, if you look at it as a 5-year strategy, it's just going to take you a lot of time.
I think a lot of realtors are in a better situation than that, though, that they have their website that they've had for 10 years. So it's got the age, it has a little bit of authority. They've just never put any work into it. So it's not starting completely from scratch, but it's still going to take some time for sure.
Yeah, it will. You have to look, first, we can go on this forever, but like, in terms of business building strategy, like the first step is defining stability. Like, okay, cool. Like I'm no longer worried about paying my mortgage, right? Then the next step is experimentation and understanding that when you do experiment, like 95% of the time, it's probably going to fail. So like at a high level, we're always looking at like leaning into everything that's working. So for us, that would be like SEO, AdWords, some other offline campaigns we have, but then always experimenting, like taking 20% of our time and saying we need to find new things. And you'll meet many people that haven't even reached the point of stability yet. So you get to stability, and then a lot of times they get to stability and they're like, man, I'm just going to stay here, right? But to grow, you have to start experimenting and figuring out like how can I find new things that will build a business?
Have you invested any time, energy in experimenting, something that you thought this is definitely going to work, and it didn't. It was a complete flop.
Yes. And you eat a big slice of humble pie. And I don't even look at it as humble pie anymore. We spent about a year and well over into six figures on Facebook display ads. I'm a sucker. Like Facebook nails me every time. Like they put some stupid product in front of me and I just buy it. Cause like, I don't know. And I was like, well, man, we're going to take advantage of that. And there's a well-known strategy in real estate called farming, where you send postcards to neighborhoods. So I'm like, cool. Like all the old people are on Facebook. Like it seems like you can convert on Facebook, and this display marketing, like this postcard marketing that works, like looks a whole lot like display marketing. This is going to work. Like there's no way this is not going to work. Well, a year later, like after losing money on it and more importantly, a ton of time, I was like, this doesn't work. Like I just walk, and you just walk away from it and you just go like, okay, like I learned that doesn't work. And that's the hard part, is that, there's certain times that you conceptualize these ideas that are supposed to be amazing, and then you find out like you were totally wrong, and you have to be willing to walk away from it and try something new at that point.
But you have to test it, and you really want to test these things that aren't well documented. If it's something new, you never know when you're going to stumble upon something that's going to just be, completely blow it out of the water.
Well, and that's the reason why, like, as you get longer in the business, like you generally see the people that are like, the reason why people are so excited about overnight success stories is because they're so rare, right? Most of the time, the people that are really successful have been in the industry for a little while. And the reason why is that you sort of collect these things that work as you go. And so, in order to collect the things that work, you have to have tried a lot of things that didn't work. And that's just the nature of the game. That's just how the game is coded. So
yeah, that continual feedback loop is just so valuable.
Yeah.
We're always testing, trying things, failing, feeling like it's a waste of time, but really it's not. It's just another thing that you can like cross off and say that didn't work. I've also, me much more so than Nick, suffer from shiny object syndromes. Yeah,
I've learned to control it better than you have. Let's say.
Well, not recently. He's gone down an AI rabbit hole recently.
Well, me too.
Yeah. Well, let's touch on that then. So AI, is it AI plus real estate? Talk to me.
Well, I will say like most of the stuff that's going to actually move the needle is pretty boring. AI itself is pretty exciting. When AI became the new buzzword, the big thing that they were selling to everybody was predictive analytics. And they were saying like, we're going to tell you who's going to sell before they even know before they even know they're going to sell. And it was total BS. One, the fact that they were claiming it was AI was just wrong. They were just buying data. I could go down a huge rabbit hole. Like they're buying data from Neustar, which is a subsidiary of TransUnion, and all this other stuff. Like I researched the hell out of it, and it just didn't work, and it was bad. And so, we had to tell agents like, hey, you should probably ignore these likely to move scores. They're not great. Now you have a lot of stuff that's promising, like, the AI is going to do all the work for you. And anytime you hear that, like, hey, this is just magically going to make your life way easier, you should probably like just walk away from it. If you look at like how it can actually help, it's incremental, and it just makes people faster and more, efficient. So, like Grammarly was around well before the LLMs, and it became way better. Like Grammarly is now like a lot more powerful tool than it used to be. One of the first things we did, like writing property descriptions when you're entering a listing in the MLS, is very annoying. Like you have to do it well enough and nobody really reads it. Well, now you can just like upload a bunch of stuff and it'll spit out a really good property description for you. I personally use ChatGPT, and I actually use Grok a whole lot. Like Grok seems to be better. Grok benchmarks faster than the latest models, and then something else will leapfrog it in the future. So total other subject, you always want to test the different models. But I use Grok for like research-based queries, and I've found that it's very, very good for legal and legal-like advice, not telling anybody not to talk to a lawyer. But if you're just like need to get a sanity check, or you're curious about like what should I do in this situation, GPT is really good at reading contracts. And man, like I'm embarrassed, but I talk to GPT all the time. Like I'll go on walks, and if I'm coming up with a new thought piece, like I'll usually just brainstorm and iterate, and then it can come up with a really great outline for me. Most of those thought pieces, I don't have it write it. I just write it myself because it needs to be my voice. But that helps a ton. Not work related, but it grades my son's homework. You know what I mean? Like take a picture, upload it. Is this right? Is this wrong? So
that's a good one.
It's great, man. Like, and I sound old, but the way they do math now doesn't make sense. So GPT, they use this in the US, they use this like new math thing that I swear to God is BS. But anyways, the GPT handles that for me. So you're seeing a lot of like AI compose. So something I'm very bullish on and that we're actually building internally. You guys probably use email templates, right? for whenever you're reaching out to for pitches.
Mhm.
So I was calling it AI powered email templates, and then somebody else more succinctly called it AI compose. I think that the LLMs will make email templates like infinitely more helpful, because the best email template is one that you go in and customize. So if you customize an email template, it's going to take you 10, 15 minutes. Well, with AI Compose, like there in real estate, for example, we do a lot of what are called CMAs, comparative market analysis. And that's when you tell somebody like, hey, this home is probably worth this. Here's why. And a really good agent is going to send them the CMA, and they're also going to accompany it with an explanation. And that explanation takes, 15 minutes to write. I found that you can upload that CMA to ChatGPT and say, write an explanation for this. Here are the boundaries. Like, give it a basic query, and it will do a phenomenal job. So that saves you a lot of time. So I feel like with the AI stuff, what's actually going to move the needle is not something that's going to turn into your personal robot. It's stuff that you're going to find these like incremental improvements as you go along. And when you find those, like, lean into them. That's the way we look at it.
Is it a tool that creates the market analysis?
So yeah, so that's an internal. We build a lot of tech. It's a whole other subject, but it's a tool. But all agents have a tool that they use to. It's a core part of your business is to do CMAs, and then they almost always go to PDFs, and you can then upload them, and it'll spit out a great email. Or we're trying to directly integrate with the API so that we don't have to take those extra steps to get the good email.
That makes sense.
Is that a custom built tool then? Or you just... Yeah. Okay.
That feels like an easy place where AI could be implemented as well, and just making those reports faster, better, using AI to analyze.
I mean, it's funny. So one of our actually onboarding specialists who handles a lot of support, she trains the agents on CMA. And I was talking with her yesterday, and I was like, well, hey, how do you feel about training on these different tools? And she said, yeah, I feel really good. She said, with the CMAs though, whenever it comes time for the explanation, I'm just like a fish out of water. I said, And so we've had like these consumer facing AI Compose features. And then I said, well, and I uploaded it to GPT, and I said, how can a real estate agent just explain this broadly? And it nailed it. And I said, well, Lexi, look, like, take this with you, just explain it like GPT told you to explain it. And like, it's crazy, but I mean, now she can kind of be the expert, even though, I mean, she's a teacher before she started onboarding, and like, she's never practiced real estate. So
that's awesome. What other processes do you think are ripe for like some sort of tool being developed? So maybe not like an all-in-one tool. That gets all the rage. It's an agent. It's going to do all your work. But I feel there's a lot of areas, maybe like with your CMS, where you have like fragmented or siloed data that could be combined. Are there any like parts of your workflow that you think like that someone's got to build a tool for this?
I mean, a big one is internal linking. Like, I don't know why that hasn't been released yet. Like, like Ahrefs already. And I'd love to talk to you guys if you have a tool that does it, but it should be able to scan your website. You should be able to tell it exactly, like, this is what I do. This is what I care about. And it should be able to give you a report on here's all your internal linking opportunities. Right now that I use like SEO Surfer and I use Ahrefs, and the tools aren't very good. It doesn't take a lot of logic to fix that. Right. So I'm waiting on that. So somebody please, build that.
There are tools like that, but I think it's pre-AI. So they're just,
no.
I don't think so. I think they kind of missed the point a lot.
Yeah. It probably would be easier to, by the time you've gone in and checked everything, it would have been easier to have just done it. Yeah.
Here's the tool that I want is an AI assistant to tell me who I need to call an email today, and to tell me who I forgot to call an email at the end of the day. Easy enough. That's what I want.
That's a good one.
Scan all your emails. Like, hey man, I don't know how many sales I've lost over the years, sales being either a recruit or like an actual sale, because I forgot to send an email. And the reason I don't know how many sales I've lost is that I know that I've been like about to close it up and go, oh crap, I forgot to email that person back. And I did it, and it turned into something. So I'm sure I've lost revenue over that. And that seems like a pretty basic one somebody should build.
Well, this isn't an AI hack to that, but something I learned within the past 6 months, which is a game changer. I don't know if you're managing emails through Gmail or not. Right. There's a button and you can snooze an email.
Yeah.
So it will just pop back into your box at the end of the day before you leave the office. And then you can go, oh, damn it, I forgot to reply to them.
I know. And I consider myself... I consider myself a Gmail power user, and I still know that I've lost stuff. Yeah, it is. Like, you can build great systems and you can follow them, but if you don't have it, like, the reason why tech works so well is not just because it makes it faster and easier. It's also because it's 100% reliable. And so like, I can be an amazing like person with a great memory, and I really care and whatever, and you're still human. You're still gonna miss stuff. So anyways, that's why But that's a great tool. I mean, like the snooze thing is awesome. And I haven't used it in a while. I probably should start using it again.
Yeah. But yeah, there is still the human element of, yeah. But that can be done. We're doing a lot
I'm
of
going to go build that now. Like,
yeah.
Slackbot reminder that says, did you email these 5 people today? And then you're like, oh, okay. And then the next morning, hey, did you remember to... I think that'd be a cool one.
It would be super. And I think if you build it in an intelligent way, like that understands your business, like for you guys, like on your sales team, you have prospects, right? So like that's very high priority. You know, your fulfillment team that's like pitching all the stuff, like their goal is to like get a hold of, you know, riders. So if they miss an email from a reporter, that needs to be at the very top. You plug it. I mean, I've thought about this a ton, right? Like you also have CRM data. So based on, you know, criteria from the CRM, like stage, you know, we have like birthdays, we have kids' birthdays, stuff like that. Like it's not that hard to conceptualize. Like, how would you just build a priority list of these are the people you should email today or call? These are the people that you forgot to. It just seems like, I was meeting with one of our agents who's awesome and he's highly technical. And we were going through this current CRM tools and we use these things called smart lists. We're based on user behavior. It's like, okay, these are people that are active, whatever. And at the end of the meeting, Trey goes, look, man, I just want to know who I'm supposed to call today. Yeah, of course. That's what you want. That's what CRM is supposed to do. Yeah.
Yeah, that's super interesting. Like, I mean, there's so much crazy stuff people are building at the minute, and you look at these, like Nick said, these agents and AI automation and stuff, and I'm exactly the same as you. So my day to day is just like, I need to just not remember to do these things. I need to remember to do X at the end of the day. I don't need a 50 agent like system to do that, but just do it so it gets done.
Well, I think we're in like, so I you know, I remember the internet in the 90s. Like I think we got internet at our house in 95 and God, that makes me sound old. But you knew immediately that like encyclopedia businesses were out of business. You're like, okay, nobody needs encyclopedia anymore. We can find phone numbers relatively easily now. Great. And that's where we are with AI right now. It's like you can see the really obvious use cases. Well, in 98, Napster came out and it like upended the music industry. And if you had told somebody in 95, like, no, this is going to like damn near put record companies out of business, you'd be like, how? There's no way that's going to work. So I do think that we're kind of early and we're kind of scratching the surface on the applications for it. Who would have guessed 5 years ago, you're talking about like AI models that like, no, the creatives are going to be the first that are challenged. And that's kind of sad. But like with the latest GPT iteration, I mean, they're getting really close to, you have a graphic designer in your pocket, right? And I think the next couple of iterations, it's going to be like, sorry, graphic designers, like we need like 99% fewer of you guys now. And that really stinks. I'm not being insensitive to that. But my point is like, we don't really know what this is going to do. We don't know who's going to be disrupted by this.
As we wrap up, is there anything that you think could be disrupted in the real estate space? Because yeah, you're right. The creative space, the marketing space as well, coding is getting massively disrupted. Is there anything you think could be disrupted in real estate with AI?
People have tried to disrupt this is not coming from a place of ego or fear. It's just a place of observation. People have tried to disrupt real estate as long as I've been in the business in multiple ways. The most highly disruptive, which was in a great way, was whenever it took the available listings and the solds from this like secret place where we're gatekeepers of information and it put it out there. And what we learned was like, okay, the information wasn't the value that the agents were providing. It was the context. It was the guidance. Realtors are very similar to lawyers in that, you know, people don't like the industry as a whole very much, but they really like their agent. They really like their lawyer, even though they don't like the industry as a whole. The reason for that is it is a very infrequent transaction of a highly unique product, right? Like each home is very unique. Industries and products that are the most ripe for disruption are those where you have high frequency purchases of homogenous products. So I do think that real estate will be disrupted in the way of agents that leverage the new tech are going to put the agents that don't out of business. But right now, in like the 5-year horizon, I don't see any way that agents are going away. And, you know, I could be wrong. I'm wrong all the time. But I just think that at least now, you know, I want a person who understands context and can guide me through a very complicated process in order to achieve it. Now, if AI makes us way more efficient, market forces might bring commission percentages down. I don't know. The internet did. The internet took the average from 6 to 5. Anyways, I'm being super long-winded, but I think people, whenever it's a complicated transaction, you know, you guys are helping people through something that's very difficult and opaque. I had somebody pitch me yesterday on a fully automated AI PR campaign, and I just deleted it. I'm like, there's no way this is gonna work.
Yeah. I think the real things that could be disrupted are like the tools and the process. It's not like getting rid of agents. Like I see a lot of complaints around like real estate CRMs, or maybe like the paperwork aspect. I've only done that once, so I'm not sure exactly how that works. But there's a lot of like manual stuff. I think that could be massively optimized. But yeah, you're right. You're not gonna like do an AI showing of a home and then never go visit it. You're always gonna need that human element.
So there's a friend of mine who's a thought leader in the space, like at the national level. He came up with this thing he calls the Del Prete probability paradox. And what it is that very exciting but unlikely things to occur generally garner the most attention. And then boring but more likely to occur things generally garner the least attention. So what you just said, Nick, where we're probably going to see a lot of efficiency gains, that's not super exciting. Like imagine a headline that says AI to usher in new era of efficiency gains. It's like, okay, but
So can we use that for a campaign?
that we should, right? Or the boring applications are what will probably move the needle. Like those are the true statements, but they don't get a lot of attention. But I will say something I've observed are the people that tend to focus on the more likely events to occur, the more likely events to actually move the needle in their business generally win out. Doesn't mean you shouldn't spend time on the exciting stuff, but you just need to put it in perspective. Like, let's talk about it over a beer. It's fun, it's exciting, but like, let's not maybe like put all of our chips on that, unlikely event.
Yeah. And I think it has been quite shocking to see the impact on like the graphic design space with the such fast-paced release of these like image generation and editing tools. But I think certain industries that we work with as well, where there is that vital human element, I think will be safe for a while.
Yeah.
Just because it's such a
Well, I do think the people that are really good are going to stick around, right? Like, okay, so the most obvious space that was massively disrupted is copywriting. It didn't mean that copywriters went away entirely. You still need somebody to direct. You know what I mean? If you go into and like just give it some garbage prompt and take the first thing it responds, it's going to be crap. But if you want to be able to put together a really well, researched and thought out piece, like it can make it way faster because you can iterate with an entity that also happens to have all of the knowledge in the world within its memory bank, right? So it becomes really fast, but then you have to guide it. Your audience. It's really tough for it to understand your audience and go from like zero to finish that way. It's probably going to be crap.
Yeah, it put out of business the agencies that wrote like the low level content, because that you can easily do with ChatGPT. But it's the same thing you were talking about earlier. Like the agents who lean into that, they become more powerful. They sell more homes. It was the same thing with content. Like you needed to lean into that. You needed to be like a better writer or know how to prompt the LLMs. You had to really level up to survive.
Agree, 100%. Yeah.
And I think efficiency is the underlying boring but exciting part of the whole narrative. Like you can now.
I'm a weirdo, man. Like I literally get so excited over efficiency gains.
Yeah.
And you would think it's like, so I could go snowboard more or do whatever. And it's like, I tend to like get super excited about efficiency gains, implement them. And then all I do is think about more efficiency gains. So at some point in time, I'll have to stop.
Nick's the same. You two should go for a beer. You can have a nice efficient beer together.
Yeah, there you go.
We're like, done.
Eric,
I'll email you my thoughts later, Nick.
Eric, this has been absolutely brilliant. Before we wrap things up, I just want to say we're going to have a lot of people that will be listening that will be general real estate fans, as it's obviously an important, impactful thing. Can you give us one groundbreaking piece of advice for anyone who's looking to buy a home and one groundbreaking piece of advice for anyone that's selling a home? The number one piece of advice.
Yeah. So timing the market is really hard and you often get it wrong. Most of the time, real estate purchases and sales are due to life events. People conflate real estate with a pure investment far too often. As long as it's a safe time for you to buy or sell, it's probably the right time for you to do it. Don't let market conditions get in your way. If it's bad time, then certainly like wait. But yeah, man, give yourself some grace and understand that real estate is largely a utility, largely a personal sale or purchase, and that's okay.
Awesome.
Good advice.
Yeah.
Okay, Eric, for people who want to connect with you, where can we send them?
Man, just Google me. You'll find me. We run a big Facebook group it's called Raise the Bar in Real Estate. So look for that too. We're trying to get people that really care deeply about high competency, high customer service altogether, regardless of who they work for, and just collaborate and just try to make the industry as a whole better. So if that resonates with you, reach out to me by Googling me or eric@bramlett.me or whatever, and then I can point you in the right direction of the Raise the Bar in Real Estate Facebook group.
Awesome. Eric, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you guys very much.
Thanks, Eric.
Awesome.
And that wraps up this episode of Market Movers, Building Brands and Links with Linkify. Big thanks to our parent company, Linkify, the wizards behind turning ambitious businesses into standout brands. Hit up our website at linkify.io and take the first steps towards brand greatness. Big shout out to Fame for making this podcast possible. Thanks for listening, folks. Stick around for more insights in our next episode. Catch you later.